yellow or too much. I think I'm going to look like not council anymore. Look like. All right. On a good day. Good. We'll get rid of that. First thing first. Hello, welcome. Thanks for coming. Budget workshop 3. Yeah, thanks, bro. So, what are we doing today? There's been lots of talk. We've got resolutions about upgrading clay-based roads. Today, I've got a policy that includes procedure as well as what we'll do and how we adjudicate that. So we got Mayor Black sitting down in the corner there. He'll take us with that. We have to talk fees and charges as well for the budget. So we've got this ready to go where we've been through a lot of them CPI, but I just want to talk through most of them with you. And then we've also got, Shaila's got a couple of changes to do with dogs that have happened throughout the year. And also, yeah, we'll get to all of that. And then Shiloh so introduce us to the buildings asset management plan as well. So not so much the plan, but we've got the data. So unfortunately, these sort of things we would like to, we're hoping to be talking to you. What was the original? August to October is when we were originally supposed to be bringing this up to. Yeah, yeah, that's right. But nonetheless, we're going to sort of get Charlotte in and talk about it just a little bit of it, just to let you know, and how it's so we are so very close. We are pleased, whatever, from having everything ready that we can bring to you and say, right, this is all the facts now. This is what is going to be happening. This is what we think you should put in. This is what we should talk about. This is what we think you shouldn't. What do you think? It's not going to be here it is. Deal with it. Sign it off, please. It'll be a back and forth conversation. But we're so very close from having all of that, and we'll have it in the next workshop. Will be the big one. So we won't be going through that today, as well as mentioned all of that. I would have loved to have been, but there is just a little bit of back and forth. We still got to go to get the figures complete and correct. So first things first, upgrading clay-based roads. So we've had lots of discussions about it. We've had people in requests. We've had resolutions put in. So we have written a policy to discuss that with you. Did you want to kick it off, Ben? Do you want me to go through? Or?
I'll start off and switch across. So yes, we have been workshops in the last 12 months. We've got guest council talking about there is a need for us to look at we do put proposals forward for form roads that aren't sheeted. So we don't classify or don't have a value in the system before, therefore they don't fit as part of that ongoing regime. So what you see from here is pro 12 months worth of work put together. It's a policy or procedural based document that talks about a process behind it. So there's an application process, there's an application form, there's criteria that we assess it against, and a formal process instead of either with application, an email to council or some ongoing customer requests.
We've been, sorry, Ben. We've also been careful to really spell it out in this policy, not just say, here's a framework. This has actually got step by step. This is what, so this is who does what, and this is how we judge. This is how we judge. Sorry, Ben.
Yes, that's all. So the purpose is to set clear guidelines and principles for assessing and determining which roads will be upgraded from clay-based roads to unsealed or rubber road status. The policy only applies to council-owned roads that are public. so it doesn't pick up any roads that are not on our roads register. And the request can come in via ratepayers, residents, community groups, elected members, or council staff, etc. So it's all encompassing. In terms of some definitions there, defining what clay-based roads are. This is what a sheeted road is, resheeting, etc. And district. Introduction. So introduction is self-explanatory. So we want to ensure that all requests are considered, assessed and considered consistently, transparent, and on their merits. Prioritising upgrades to deliver best benefit for road safety, connectivity, and the community in general. Making decisions based on fiscal responsibility aligned with Council's long-term financial plan. So we know this is an increase to our asset stock if we do upgrade roads from form roads to clay roads. Communicating clearly on the requested parties through the stages. So the request will come in, we'll document it, we'll then go through an assessment process. We'll go to council to get formal feedback, or the roads committee, and then be assessed. And we can then update the parties as we go on.
Thought it was important to just put the communicating clearly. It's not something we've historically done well. It's when people have spoken to us, we've gone thanks.
Yep.
And silence, but we sort of actually documented that we will be getting back to people within X amount of days.
Yep. So our policy principles are merit-based assessment, equity and transparency, fiscal responsibility, strategic alignment, and governance and accountability. So through our role and responsibilities, we see who plays a part in the process. So have the person requesting it, or the constituents requesting it, infrastructure team, which is the people that will go out there and site and have a look at it, including the administration support behind the scenes. Director of Infrastructure will be providing the technical assessment to council and some cost estimates. Chief Executive, if there's any delegation scenarios we need to go through, also making sure the policy is updated when it falls due. The chamber, or the elected body, so all those decisions will come through council, potentially through the Roads and Infrastructure Committee. We can then determine the funding allocation through our budget process, whether it's a yes, go do it, or it's yes, we approve in principle, subject to budget consideration. So the process is stepped through. So run through that. So the application, there's an application form at the back we can get to shortly. So it defines where the road is, the details, the merit of putting it forward. We then acknowledge that, so it comes through the records.
Should we talk about show them?
Yes.
Yeah, so everything's got a form, everything goes into records. Stuff we sort of got to do. Everything's got to be freedom of information. It's not liable, so we need to have a trust. So it's pretty self-explanatory. Requesting party details, where's the road? Give us the reason, and then supporting documentation to back up your claim, to back up your request.
So we don't believe the form is onerous. It's more just making sure we've got enough detail that we can attach it to a council recommendation.
Yeah.
So once that form is received, it gets lodged to our records department. We then do a preliminary check to make sure the road is within our care and control. So is it a public road? Is it, what's the definition of it? Is it a clay-based road, or is it a partially rubble road that is incorporated into our renewal program? And then if there's other duplicates in the system, we then go through a technical assessment. So what's the current condition of it? What's the status of it, drainage, geometry, etc. What's the volumes and traffic patterns? Is there a new development that's increasing volumes? Is it just an upgrade or an upgrade of traffic volumes due to different farming techniques or different usage of the area around it? Is there a strategic link, or is there a continuation of the road network that does encourage traffic volumes, etc.? Looking at the crash history and the safety consideration. So is there lumps and bumps, is there crests, etc.? Is there intersections that need to be looked at? Is there a reason for us to get in there and what's the beneficiaries that will come out of it? Is it residential that need access all year access, is it agricultural improvements or agricultural needs, or is it other community access related issues? So we'll review the soil type, determine the conditions. So we do know that there's some clay roads out there that get very sticky and tacky during winter, sometimes in pastoral, and there's also in summer some of our sand dune roads or roads that are built on sand dunes do fairly ordinary pavements, etc., going through sand dunes. So that picks up both.
Is there any place there where you can count how often they've been bogged on the road? Many times. There's nothing here that shows that so far, is there?
Yeah.
So,
and that's what's in the form. So it's basically, this is what we look at from a technical point of view, is to say, what's all that history, what's that documentation? If the constituents come through and say, from a technical perspective, this is what council assesses it on. However, this is how we use the road. So it might be that in winter we have to get certain, we have to access certain reasons, and then it causes issues. Or if it's summer, we're trying to get spuds or crops off or cattle out, and it's hard to get out because of sand dunes. So again, it's providing all that background, all that detail. So the form does, I guess, give a little bit of reason behind to say that we can expand. So formalising the application form as well means we can go back and forth with more rationale, more rigor while we're assessing. So once you test the technical assessment has been undertaken, we look to priority score. And I'm scared to go down the bottom of the yep. So we believe assessing a number of different priority scorings. So we get a score of 7 and 5. We have weighted some of those based on traffic safety, on traffic volumes, access and connectivity, and if there's increased maintenance associated. So they do have higher weighting versus community benefit and economic benefit, environmental factors, cost benefit factors. We have included that, as well as external contributions. So if there is some contributions or cost from the community or from the applicants coming through, we can assess that as well, and that may bump up the if someone is willing to contribute.
But you can see the guides there as well. It's not just road safety, what do we feel? It's looking at the frequency, sight lines, flooding, risk to emergency services, access, all of that stuff that people were telling us about. Yeah, access and connectivity is a big one there, number of properties served, and if there's any alternative routes, distance to nearest seal road. So it's not just, it's not fuel, it'll have to be on those criteria.
So once we've done the technical assessment and priority scoring based on that template, we can then prepare a report for council to, I guess, summarise all that and put council for a recommendation to either approve the recommendation, defer based on financial or based on information, or more warrants for the upgrade, or decline it based on it doesn't meet our current criteria, it's very low score, for example. So council then consider it, either Roads and Infrastructure Committee or council in general. We can then notify the outcome of the proposal, get back to the constituents that are requesting it, and give them an update, and then we can start to program. So theoretically, once it's gone to get a decision, we will then start to put it into a works program, and then start to deliver it through that way. And we can update the customers part of that. So in terms of cost sharing, or I alluded to before, is there a development application that's changing land use? Is there some additional upgrades to properties, etc., that don't require development approval, but they're willing to contribute based on their infrastructure on site? Is there any other public benefit to public versus private benefit? So is there only one person or one company or one stakeholder that's asking for the road upgrade, and would they contribute a little more, and then would council consider that as a benefit to upgrade?
quite a few years ago, anyone changing from agriculture to horticulture or irrigated horticulture, they had to put application in to change the land use, but that doesn't happen anymore. It used to happen all the time, but it hasn't for years now, and that does it happen? It was through council before they had to apply. Otherwise, council say that road's not good enough, so put spuds there, you see, and it's. Yeah, is it? Oh, no, it's still got a lot of guys that put spuds in, and we'd say, when are you going to apply for it? They'd be picking Marie, and it was too late by then, so.
Change it from to what option.
Yeah, I'd like to see that.
Whether they do it.
Yeah, I know this much, but I'm pretty sure that's.
Can be used once they're deals with.
And by that time they've gone, right? It hasn't happened for long. Come up with
Not about asking that question myself. Yeah, because from a range perspective, there is no different land uses much.
Yeah.
So everything we sat and had that paper presented to us, there's nothing defined. In the land use part, they got like 700 codes, but we as accounts don't get to use or see them. It's only when the water that changes, I think. So I don't know who would be asking that all, but that's.
Yeah, but Hart was he had to go and visit these people and say, if you've got an application, if you haven't, you better hurry up, put one in. And that had to happen. Like he's been gone a long time now. That's what's happening anymore. So no one's taking his place doing that. So that way you haven't got to have a track who actually got irrigation or who wasn't
Just irrigation.
Yeah, it's recreation.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got Play Road, the Gunnery was talking about, so you've got people, cattle,
Yeah. Lot of
land
things.
speed,
That's right.
there's a whole myriad of different usages. But I think it's a valid question to find out, sounds like might have the answer here, like, do people have to notify council, does council find out about those land uses anymore, or is it just foreign production, that's it?
I'm like 99% sure for changing land use, you have to apply for it. I don't know who they apply for when it comes to council.
No, I thought, Charlotte would know a bit more about it, would you? You get, who's on?
The rules change when you see to the DPI, so there's actually now a defined delineation between and so
Yeah, even when I think pretty big box storage in there north of Pinaroo. That's he would have had to apply for that. I imagine.
Well, bulk storage
Yeah.
is a different balance.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see how we look at that nowadays, because I'm pretty sure it's pretty flat.
So if there's a significant upgrade or significant change of land use, like a box storage feedlot, generally that would spark a approval that we could then assess from a technical perspective access. And therefore through that development process, we would ask for, what would their vehicle be, what their vehicle movements be, can they get in and out of the property safely, etc. And then we might call for turning movements, for example, and therefore the access point has to be BW approved or B triple or whatever it is. Then we look at it from a permitted access point of view. So under the heavy vehicle regulation.
You still have to follow like Thomas Foods one there doesn't bad council, but they can use our council area. So it's a bit hard because they've got an application there for them, not for us to where traffic's coming through. So
so there is some triggers. And I guess this is where using a setup or using a process setup is to say, what is that trigger and where's it coming from? Is it coming from the applicants and saying, I am putting a different building site on there, I am changing my haulage routes to larger trucks, or is it someone coming from the community that's impacted by that? So potentially it might be because of the way that it's in and out of a site that where does that make the local access more difficult? So therefore there's a reason for whilst you get through there on an articulated tractor, can you get through there on full? So again, they're the things we want to flesh out.
The things to me that are important, obviously the most I put there was December 23, so it's getting somewhere with it. And that's not a slide, you guys, it's just like really. But the things that were based were that most of those questions you've got there are going to be unanswerable because the reality is they're clay-based roads for a reason. They're parts, roads were rubble to a person's gate back in the day, and then beyond that they weren't. And if I use Lanaroo South as an example, back when that road was rubbled, and then it went to clay and that goes to the park, it's not access to the park, it's dead end to the park, it's 45 access, no big bad. So that's a dead end road.
Now that's been a horrible road for years. Is it unsafe? No, it depends whether you're coming down the road to the direction of travel, probably, but that Buckingham Road's the same. Rain's going on, that turns to mush as well. We don't have the economic capability to go on mass, bring these roads up to spec. Never going to happen. But we have a series of people who have had legitimate claims in over years, and some of them started to have work and stopped. We have no budgetary allowance at all on go to say, look, let's do a little bit, and this is how you get access to that little bit. So that's where the point of this was coming from. And it was also coming from, is it just clay formed to fully sheeted rubble? And you've been part of this conversation before. There are examples out of Chris and Trevor's part of the world where ballast was recovered from old railway lines and rolled into clay to make it tractable at low speed. There was sand getting mixed with clay. Neville's put up every time he had the opportunity for a half-width road. There are a lot of different alternatives because we know $5 million a year to clay. So I guess I'm still interested in what is the matrix. Like, you know, it's matrix based because or metric merit based. An example would be the gun in our term has put in an application, has got a change of use, has created a great big thing on the clay road. It's still a clay road, so I'm assuming none of this happened that we're talking about, because obviously it went through approval through Plan SA and our council to say, yes, you can do that activity. It's absolutely a change of land use. Well, the road didn't get touched as part of it. Now, and if that was a development, why shouldn't the requirement put on him to 50-50 co-share, excuse me, being a complete change of use and a co-share arrangement? I'm not saying it should or shouldn't, I'm just saying that it was never brought to us for a decision of any kind, other than him going to a meeting and say, geez, it'd be nice if it was Richmond Road. Then the second about that would be an existing road, Cornish Road, as an example, lots district, but Cornish Road from Billiat through to, I guess it's Claypan, maybe Garrow, I'm sure which one it is, this first one, is an absolute disaster. It's a horrible clay road that ends up with pools. It's had horticulture traffic on it since horticulture started up here. It's a horrible piece of road, and yet when it develops up the other, it turns to beautiful sheeted road. Now, again, I'm not saying it should change, but at some point, how does it get a list if there was a list, and what should it be? So that was the motive of the thing, and I appreciate the fact of getting something, but kind of, you know, if we look at safety and other benefit to community and all these sorts of things, most of them are either dead end or very low traffic. It's just that people's farming use, and I'll take the point, you know, is there a change of land use that goes with those options? Maybe there is, maybe there isn't. Lanaroo South being classic example, you know, Ben Warner bought what was pretty much a grazing farm that was originally scrubbed, that was cleared legally. Well, now it's got pivots, and been out there and visited as councillors. That's changed that perspective now from him. He'll cart potatoes in there and just get a bigger tractor. But for the graziers, as an example, he's a bit buggered because it's trying to get cattle out, but he just can't get in and out.
It's a big tractor.
Yeah, well, you can't. So there are, yes, how does that, he can put that in that application, but how does that get assessed in that merit system? Sure. Is it economic activity? Is it, yeah, so their question, I'm not poo-pooing what you're doing, just sort of saying it. I feel like it's a bit of a generic thing that hasn't got enough teeth in it at the moment, and certainly there's no costing there to say, hey, if you know, can we do this balance review as an example? You know, a perfect case for that would be Mallee Hills Road. At the top there's potato growers. Sites now got Garrow North or whatever it is at the top. Turns into Mallee Hills. Well, they're polarised, feed potato thing, and on the other side, but the other end, it could almost be blocked off and have an alternative and just be ballast rolled into that and make it a one-way road and supplement a through road. Okay.
Like we built our tractor in our farm, that just filled up tracks. That's what we did. Use that to be average. So we done, but
Where does, when applications are put in for the, where does planning SA sit at actually looking at the access to that property? They come to council, and so what is this condition? Played by the area, X amount of B doubles a day, is that right, currently up to standard? If not, no, application doesn't go through.
It's being assessed at. It's likely assessed like should be able to see on those searches. It's assessed at a state
Yeah.
of our jurisdiction that can do.
What triggers it? So price, isn't it?
Yeah.
As an example of that is that guy bought the property on Ridgeway and came to council and was quite agitated that as it law.
Coming this, stick and play.
Down Sticky Clay Road, bought specifically 3 to 4 years ago to put a beetle on it. So how can possibly do that? Can't get stuff in and out. There's an argument that said, well, you need that report. The other one was the district one involved. Up our GDP and employed people, it's like, well, the road is to hinder it. But how the mechanism, because he obviously bought that, I don't know whether there any applications in a decision to stop. But that was an example. Talked about it.
Yeah, says he probably wouldn't even triggered anything like that until they actually started. Yeah.
But there could potentially be circumstances where people want to go from sealed road. Should we have a similar policy for that too?
Yes.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and we want to see, we're getting a lot more requests for formed roads or formed roads up to rubber roads. Probably, there's probably about 10 that come to mind straight away, as well as the ones that are named so far. So we want to be able to, I guess, see if this works. The subtle difference between unsealed to sealed is you then have to make sure it meets full standard. So therefore, if it is a B-double, it's got to make sure that you're building it to that standard, pavement-wise, hills and crests and gullies-wise, as well as in sections. So do bring it up to a sealed road, you have to make sure that it meets sealed road standards. Unsealed roads, there's I guess a little bit less. There is requirements, but there is some methodology about how to do it based on traffic volumes, based on road widths, road depths, etc. Potential permits as well. So potentially we put a permit over to have 4 metre wide road that creates access to be around. The formation might still be 8 metres wide. So a car can get off the side of the road if there's another car. If they're low volume roads, or dead end roads, etc., that might be an option. The other overlay to this is in the last 12, 18 months, we've looked at how can we form our roads better, so get a bit of crown on them, get a bit of shape to them, get the moisture off the top surface, try and compact that properly, and then potentially run some roll over it to get a more tractable surface. We know that when we put clay, we mix clay and sand, we do have that tacky surface that's during winter. So putting rubble on says that cost factor, there might be a longer term benefit for winter. Everything we do is under maintenance at the moment for these formed roads. Therefore, it's a matter of how do we get the most bang for the buck for doing what we need to do versus if we rubble it, that should last 20, 30 years, depending on the status we upgrade to.
So target well.
Do we have the capacity to take on any more roads in our maintenance program?
I'll go the opposite way and say, council as a elected body, we need to make sure that everyone that has an allotment has public road access to it. Do they have one access, or do they have access to that property? And what is that? Is that access appropriate? So therefore, we have a duty of care to make sure that there is some access to, so they're not landed as such. But is that access sufficient for what it's used for? And if there is an upgrade, who pays for it and how to be assessed? So in terms of maintaining what we do have, do we have enough staff and resources? I would say yes. We need to manage that effectively. But again, spending a lot of time putting rubble out, trying to fix a fairly wide road, where we might be able to do it once, and that's it for 20 years, that's a better approach. And there's a number of roads we have in the next couple of years that have improved the portion of the road, but they haven't fixed it. Meaning they haven't upgraded the road, so we can make it easy. We can just put a problem. So this will also say, no, that road doesn't meet our criteria, and we're only going to patrol it. We're only going to use our maintenance money to patrol it, put a bit of shape into it, and that's it. Unless there's a warrant for us to do something different. So yeah, and hopefully that will come back through, once we start testing the system, that will come back through the council reports, and we can start to say yes or no, and then have that list we can go through, and then council can determine where we fund it from and how much we want to do as a new initiative, how much we want to put into this to solve these problems. And it might be that there's an option that we'll fund up to 50% of the construction costs and leave it up to the property owner if they wish to contribute. That's an option, potentially, if council's in that in-between stage, in terms of saying, yes, we need to do it. We don't have funding for the next 5 years, but if you're willing to contribute 50%, therefore we may be able to get some funds together. So there's some options.
It would be easier if we do something, something's not getting it. So yeah, the capacity is
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's that, and it's the money as well.
Yeah.
Because the reality is we're going to find out next month about where we're be away from the rates level. This is only going to pile on top, but the rate has to live on these properties, whether they're legacy or bought in. Some of them, and I think of, and sorry, it's local this area because this isn't the best, but Runners out the back, it only had 2 roads to go out to this property, and they're both shit. But they are, and that's been a huge grazing property for years and years. They just dealt with it. They're both clay roads and they're both on track for when it gets wet. Now that property is sold because they've moved on. It's a farm, so it'll be interesting to see. But all the rates they pay, but every basically had a clay road. That's the only access they've ever had.
Rewrote many years ago. Yeah, she could track it. But yeah, it probably wasn't that properly. That's yeah, because asking farmers to contribute, if farmer has to contribute 100,000 towards his road, he'd just go buy a bigger tractor for 100,000 and just dragging stuff in and out rather than pay to have the right fixed. So I'm going to tell you that. So because that does happen.
Well, it also society. So it's the question. The road next to me doesn't have to pay for his road because he happens to comes up to it now. My rate's the same as him and contribute 50% to the road. How is that work? And I mean, there's arguments both ways, but it is a value. It's been put to us. I think you've had it as well, quite bluntly. Well, why that? Excuse me. People don't even have a place in the town.
Just to go back to that question around there. So yeah, it's the district pretty much as well. In the Riverland, for example, it's rural horticulture. So it's done in our area, so there wouldn't be a change in land use anymore.
When there was a big rural residential and
Yeah, no, not yes. Yeah.
Land types change, recreation, that kind of operation.
Say that again.
Is the land not change to recreation with that kind of.
no, big commercial, so what you're in the gallery. So the gallery wants commercial activity.
Yeah.
I don't know whether with that, but it's just right. Yeah. So
I guess what I look at is there's a number of examples out there that we can try and put through this process. And even if we were to test run 4, 5, 10 of it, we can then start to say, here is a list of works we're going to do. This is sort of where we need to get to. How do we then start the process? And running through, we can then say, if someone comes through and puts a significant horticultural plant that on a certain part of the road, we can then potentially come through the development side of things and say, where's your access? Can we condition it associated with it? So it might not be a change of land use from going, current property, etc., but it might be a significant building or something. We can then make sure that we're on top of it and say, no, you need to contribute or you need to ensure you have safe access to that.
So one last statement. The one trigger change in land use in here be to go to feedlot. Feedlot does trigger a change in land use to intensive agriculture.
Is that a certain size?
Yes, so it's not on that scale, it's not set in stone spot. Yes.
But I mean, they didn't have, there'd be a sign that base, it's just doing, so then. To be, get long.
It's the difference in that's it's a containment.
There you go.
So if you stock are in there for 12 months a year,
Yeah.
containment feeding is.
Keeping plus and people.
That's cost. But if feedlot, if you're intensive feeding every day of the year, it's a feedlot. If you let them out for, I think it's in classified week, it's containment feeding. You don't need to charge.
Bed space needs to move on. So is there, I don't know, but so is there in this, we haven't got, are you proposing, will you be proposing different styles of road treatments? I mean, you've said about, obviously we've mentioned ones that have been used historically. Yeah, I understand in that, but I'm saying actually in the policy, what are the treatments? These are the three things that you can do. This is the, this is the current cost per kilometre to do them, because we know the need. There's 242 k's of clay road. Even if you said 10% are going to come in, I'd say that's probably guaranteed. Of that 10%, I mean, Lamley South is probably 10 or 14 k's itself. So if that 10% came in, there's no way forward. But what are the choices of treatment? And could the chamber today decision to say, yes, you can, you move to the top if you're prepared to take riding ballast 25k speed limit. Yep, you can be done sooner than someone who absolutely has to have sheeted full road. That's 1,000 cut.
If we do something like that would change the depreciation of that actual road schedule. It's only if it goes, but as depreciation, if we weren't to actually rubble it, we were to do something else to it, does that affect the depreciation schedule?
Do you think because if you go through 4 million,
So that's what I'm saying. So once
Yeah, if we upgrade it, it's got a good value. So therefore, if we put $1,000 worth of rubber on, it has a commercial value to us. If we only rubble in, if we only bring in some clay, some sand, something, or run some ballast in, one, does that meet the requirements of what we need to do? Is it going to achieve our objective of an all surface or all year, all season access point? In terms of the width and the etc., they're in the design code, so we did publish that, did provide that at workshop 12 months ago. So there is some standards around that. How we massage those rules and requirements into each of the roads comes under the technical assessment. So we would go there and say, here is the approach we're going to do. This is what we're going to do for that road in particular. And therefore, here is one or two options, or here is what we recommend. So it may be a 4 metre wide road, it might be a 7 metre wide road, deep pavement based on whether it's sand or clay. It may just be a light sprinkling of we've got some costings in there for 4 metre wide, 150 mil, or alternatively 7.2 metres wide at 75. So it's trying to bring it up to a road classification. If it meets road classification, we'll then value it and then put it into our necessity. If we're only, I guess we take a step back. If we're only shaping it and we're only putting gifted ballast on it that meets the requirements of getting people up and down the road, I wouldn't call that a sheeted road status. I would call it as major maintenance, trapped under maintenance. If we're doing a 4 metre to a 7 metre wide road, bringing up to our local status, which is 6 metres wide theoretically, a local road status, then that's when we'll bring it into our road asset register and put it in as a class 5 road, 6 metres wide, and therefore we'll come into our revaluations.
essentially, some of these roads could be done without affecting shafts.
To get more traffic.
Get more traffic, make them trafficable. If they're a dead end road, talking property using, there'd be options to do that to keep it off of the pressure.
That's right. And it's deliberately left open. So it leaves Ben as the expert to make the decision of this is what I do. And again, is it 4 minutes, is it 5, is it 6, is it 7? But there's lots depending on the road It's case by case. This is not, it's not blanket. So that's why there is the preparation of the assessment report. It's all there and then puts his name to it.
And again, that's dependent on vehicle use as well.
Yeah.
So for example, if you've got B doubles or B triples trying to get in for wide agricultural plant equipment, wide agricultural plant equipment is probably okay, or a 7 metre wide corn drive. However, to get the your normal small trucks and utes in and out, surface 4 metres wide. You can still get all your wide lines through, but again, you're going to have to maintain wide access potentially. Or is it a recreational space where the ATVs and motorbikes start 4 metres is probably suitable for them to get their vehicles in there. It may not be appropriate for bringing the cattle out. There's some examples recently bringing cattle out that have beat up road from there. And they're trying to bring them out to get them onto the road so they can move their freight pretty quickly while the trucks. Our trucks are only going to get bigger as well. So again, this will put it into our road register, and therefore potentially in the future we have to upgrade this as well. So there is some consideration that if you build a monster, it's going to continue to grow in the future. So to clarify what we're looking for is going back about 20, 30 years ago when the National Heavy Vehicle came in, some people were on council back then, it was a commodity use that was through the permit process. That's why a lot of our roads are gazetted B-doubles for permit B-doubles, because it's commodity getting on the farm. And that's why I'm going to the farm gate. So instead of the road segment up to the intersection. So yeah, so the legacy scenario that the council inherited. Now it's got, it's more complex when we're doing permits through the National Heavy Vehicle system. Sorry.
And so is there any, with that policy, is there any influence in the budget numbers that are going to be put forward for an allocation per year? Obviously, we're going to have challenges funding it, but at least if there is a policy and we are saying it's something to consider, that should be an amount in there to consider as well.
I don't think you guys are saying we should be upgrading them. Just saying this, if someone wants it upgraded, this is the process to follow.
Well, there's already a list of people all over the district who want that and ask for it. So the only way that can be funded is if you've got some kind
Well,
of.
just because it's on the list doesn't mean we have to approve it. I think what they're saying there is there's going to be a list of stuff there. They're going to score it, put a ranking there. And then if the chamber decides to make the decision to upgrade one of the roads, you'd probably pick the first.
How do they make that decision if it's not a forecast that comes forward?
I guess
it should be.
And ultimately it's coming out of an administration decision and going to council. And say, for example, this year, next year, we're allocating $2 million worth of depreciation, $2 million worth of capital upgrades. Does council want to renew what they've got and therefore continue to maintain what they've got, versus we want to upgrade some as compensation for those people that are paying rates as well, that will last for 20, 30 years. So again, council decision. We will be recommending, or recommended in the past, that don't put more asset burden or more resource burden on the community, unless you really think about it and we've got a defined process to go through. Instead of allocating one project, 1 out of 10 or 20 that we've received so far, that starts precedence. Now we've got an assessment process that we can then assess all of those and say which ones you want to do and prioritise those. We'll do this one, we won't do that one. So, and it's council decision at the end of the day.
The only problem with that is back to something like previously, which is if you want to do that drop, because that's and that goes back to create exactly the same shortfall that we're in this situation because we have been doing this properly for a long time. And now it comes back to the change just through a fancy way of saying, if you choose to do some of these roads that have gone through the system we believe should be done, that'll be the cost of not upkeeping some of the other ones. And so we just start that whole again, as opposed to, again, this discussion originally was about what would you need to put per year as an allocation to say, well, we allocate to do half a K a year or K or 2 Ks or whatever it may be. And if you don't need to do it, fantastic, that can go into other stuff. But in an allocation point of view, at least you're saying there's something there and someone dealing with something.
It also throws in when you've got outside investors coming into the district doing stuff on these properties where all profits leaving the district and putting anything back in. How do you make that decision? Other than that, Based on that.
I guess in the context of we have resources to go all year round with the training, etc. There may be an option to say we may need to deep dive into our budgets, which we've cracked that egg and we're working through that. There may be options to say if we've got graders and machinery down for 3 or 4 months, not for grading in summer, is that the resource we do? We do form up some of these roads, we shape them, etc. So therefore we're contributing towards doing some of that work. And then there might be some private contribution to that. So there's some ways of, I guess, strategy behind how we can do it. It's a matter of going to the chamber and saying, do you have an appetite to do that? Because that will then potentially influence future decisions. But it's a council decision, administration with technical information, policy procedure behind it to make those decisions. Not just the one side that say, yes, we'll appease this person, this company versus there's 10 others who've been waiting for similar time.
So that would happen by, we set this budget now, and the next financial year, someone comes in and you assess it all and say, yeah, it's criteria. That would have to wait till the following year before it gets done because it's not in that budget.
Yeah, potentially you could allocate some money out of the capital works program. And I think there might be a precursor to some other discussions later in the meeting to say we're going to allocate $2 million for municipal roads and we are going to allocate 1.9 million towards renewals and 100,000 towards some of this stuff as a precursor. We're saying potentially you would, but potentially that's where council could go. We're putting a proposal to maintain what we've got through next year's budget. Council through the chamber may decide to, okay, let's only do 1.9 and we want to invest 100 to put into some other projects to deliver some things. And what is that? We talked before about contributions and about funding opportunities. What we get with $100,000 if we put it to the community to say, if there's $1 million worth of work, can we get contributions by some of the property developers? Some may. You might be able to double your project money for that. They might contribute 50%. Some might say no. Some might provide some in-kind support or some contractors to pay for rubber. So there might be an opportunity to say, does council want to allocate money that we currently have in the budget towards this, knowing that there's going to be a deficit in renewals in the future? But what will that money do? Will that generate more rates revenue? Will that generate more potential more project money through contributions? Or will it just be status quo? Can we absorb some of it through our maintenance monies so we can reallocate some in-kind support into this project as well? And that may be an option to council is yes, we'll put $100,000 worth into this project. It's only in-kind support through plant equipment, through our current labour resources. So we'll do 100 grand's worth of reforming, re-wetlands in our roads. We need contribution from others to contribute towards road, potentially. But again, that's a chamber decision to work through. So.
Yeah. Any other questions? We will bring this to the next council meeting for then for adoption. So then we can make it real.
So when a new application does come in, whether you guys think it should be done or not, we bring every single one to council or just, yeah.
Yes, we'll bring it to and say, we've assessed it, there's timeline to stuff in here, we'll assess it, we'll put the council for decision.
Yeah.
And then the chamber can decide. So 3 options: approve, decline, defer.
Yeah.
So decline is no, we're not doing it. Defer is we'll create, that's where the prioritisation comes into it.
Yeah.
So the score and it builds the roads in.
So there could be merit to that.
Yeah, it scores highly, but financially we can't do it. And we just put it into the, it'll sit at number 1 priority as it is to the next one to do it.
I'm just worried some people might be better at filling in forms or exaggerating case than others.
Yeah, it's not.
So I wonder how you weight that.
Yeah, it's.
Yeah, Ben.
Okay, we've got the criteria there, we put it through and we try and be as unbiased as possible and say, here is where it sits.
Yeah.
And if it's the same, it's the same people assessing it or providing to council, it's the same format, then the chamber will be able to see, okay, yes, we've got it. And then I guess the political side of things can be, how do we assess a dead end road that goes to recreational versus someone that's bringing in a contribution because of sparks or because of pivots. Should they contribute as a business that's potentially leaving the profits, leaving the company, leaving the district versus there's a community aspect of that. And so the theory is we can put it down so we can try and mass it in such a way that it is consistent information based on criteria, and then we can be as unbiased as possible. And then the chamber can bring that political overlay to making the technical decision.
But that will include the options, like different options, 3 4 metre road, that as well. Yeah.
Okay. And it's like I alluded to before, it depends on what the road is for. If it's for wide factors, etc., getting through, is it for B doubles or tractor and trailers pulling spuds running through? Is it just about to get a truck in and out for seasonal haulage? Or is it someone's thoroughly upgraded their property so it is more residential, so they need to get in and out every day with you? A 4 metre wide track would be suitable, versus that may not be appropriate for one, but 4 feet up.
Okay, to justify going in the rubble road, plant-based road, and only goes to one property. It's just,
No, it's not with it.
you cannot justify that.
No.
I cannot see how chamber could justify doing that. But if it is a connecting section, which is used by multiple people for different teams, then yes. So, yeah, but just running into one property, as with dead ends north and south, you just cannot justify spending money on it.
Now we talk about road usage, road volumes, etc., and road condition. So a great example of what I said is Forming. Another great example is Werfel Road, where there's a section of plane between blocks. If you look at it from a network point of view, that's an east-west connector. Then you go back on the east-west connector to the southern area, you got Allenby that you can basically drive from draining right way through, and the last couple of kilometres on Allenby Road is clay. You look at Bay Road, for example, there's a lot of movements that are going through that northwestern area. They're the examples where you can put together versus the dead end track. So again, that's pick it up in the technical assessment. And hopefully from there we can then provide some better information to say, yes, there's some merit in here and it's how it rates against our weighting system. Again, but I guess closing remarks, trying to use a process, use a system, see if it works, potentially review it in 12 months if we need to, and then put it back through council and say, what do you think about, is the process working? If the process works, we might better consider sealed roads as well as a similar process. But yeah, if we don't do anything, I guess we seem to go around in circles again. We have workshops, bids up, but it doesn't get any traction. And our constituents.
So
then that way we don't want to get to unless we start to put some rigor in the process. There'll be a number of examples which I think we'll get fairly quickly. There's a assessment form.
So thanks, David. Sure that inside the administration, as people go, not everyone has an equal voice and equal ability to use their voice, and saying that the ability to write a same proposal. And just because someone's not necessarily good at articulating their position doesn't mean they've got it. Right? So it's incumbent on people assessing that, on merit, to be able to understand what is the impact of that person, that thing they're talking about, because that impact varies. If someone owns 10 different tracks, start spec up, they can get through anything with anything. That's different to, a small operator who can't do that. And that should be assessed as part of the merit, because the idea of this in the beginning is to take it away from people, councillors, and it was up to who had a relationship or a good voice could get work done, or could lose it alternatively as well. So we'll have to see. It's been on the books since 2023. I don't think that debate's too long. I mean, it's 15 minutes per year.
You should have changed the time. I'm gonna get a couple of beers anyway.
Yeah, I might get any water.
Yeah. Meetings. Well.
I'll just.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
Cool.
Did you change?
No, it is still showing, you're right. I had it mute.
Can you change the?
Message from Luke, it was going to be about an hour.
All right. Fun times. We are now up to.
Please, the charts.
Venus, and great, can you for the presentation? Use the full screen or not?
It's
No, right.
it showed it up with being full. Yeah. Screen mode. Yeah, another different aspect ratio to do this. Right, vision charts. So we do it every year. I've done a couple of, well, Tony's taken it, and then I've added a extra bit as well that we'll talk about at the end. So I'll start at the top. I'm not going to talk about these ones too much, but printing and photocopying of council documents. Did you want to go through line by line?
No. Surprised.
We've gone by 3.3%.
So get directed to the library. That's what.
More here, yeah.
No.
Right.
Just tell us the ones you think need to change.
Sure. Childcare's going up by 50 cents an hour. Now, this is all the, this is 3.3% is the, CPI figure that we put it up by. So,
Do you think that's real? I mean, they're talking 6% the next month.
I don't.
And we're saying that we can't contact people and we can't do things, we can't attract people, we can't everything. So Metro CPI doesn't seem to come.
To show you what that looks like.
That's true, realistically.
Yeah, yeah. Well, let's look at that one then. So, yeah, 16.10 per hour, and then benchmark. You benchmark that. It's not low, it's not high. It's sort of yeah.
That's just brought to cover the costs, just wages.
We'll get that, but, yeah, please, you know, high compared to others that can.
But when you're a provider of last resort and no alternatives, like we cut those, we're not making them out of it. Yeah. Yeah, no, I understand.
See, people pay off more than that, though. My daughter pays for childcare, some of that costs her more than that.
We live where we live.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking.
I see it.
Yeah, and it is cost neutral.
Better say that as long as it's cost neutral.
Gone.
Yeah, if we're doing something, again, there's up $50,000 profit.
That's right. Yeah, would be correct. Yeah. Cinema there, 13.50. I mean, that's cheap, of course, but it's the cinema here. This here, I think, needs to have a discussion.
Has there been any talk of the cinema fees, which is the only recovery we get last year or the year before? They had said that they wanted to get seats or something redone. So much in cinema to cover. So has there been any more talk about that? I think we suggested that they just swap and move some of the ones that we're wearing out.
That's
Well, yeah, because it's fine as long as it's, again, as long as it's covered. Because it was 90,000 cost something that we got cinema.
was it?
You were here, Chief.
Well, digital, maybe.
Was that when we replaced all the seats?
Yeah. No, SIP was done for nothing, because they got,
Gone for another cinema.
much they made, but I think they had to go from a digital Yeah, that, how the.
So,
Yeah, they had to go digital stuff, it was all stuff before that. That's when that big was. Otherwise you can't, you set in, they. Digital.
because we just think that's right.
Yeah.
And how's that been going? I mean, getting any cost recovery?
Well, there's a little bit, yeah, from the,
I mean, like there's thousands, so is that sort of doing anything? Just when you're setting up pay, be nice to have it tracking.
yeah,
Again, you're not trying to push the people to go cinema, but it's, you know, if it was set up, it's costing 50 grand a year and you're getting 5 back.
it's not costing 50, I think we budget for about $7,000 or $8,000 a year for film costs. And I think our tickets are close to that. Yeah, I would have to double check that.
So it's nearly cost neutral, is that?
But yes, but without, anything else, without wages and without, that was, but any improvements and
Covering the cost of movies and
just the movie.
any good campaigns, the trying to get electricity.
Yeah.
That's
That's what you have to say.
Well,
So it's really direct expense.
What's the price went to $15? Will any less people go, do you reckon?
The comment was made, I don't know if you recall I think it was last year or the year before, when someone, wasn't a councillor, but someone else suggested ticket price going up, and there was quite a bit of pushback saying, well, if it went up, no one would go.
Yeah,
Is that fact or fiction? I think.
Yeah, 25 plus for a ticket.
same thing there, sorry, which, we've done some things. So the prices are very similar to what others are doing. Places like Blythe and down South Wales.
Okay. Can't.
So it's
Okay.
Yeah,
I mean, it's not a big thing either way. It's hard to make a decision on fees. The big picture.
That semaphore thing, that's $10 flat for everything.
yeah,
They're still going.
thousands of people in there, but.
Yeah, that's right. Good population base. I don't know whether it affects it. People going on.
Movies are shown, so we suggest.
Yeah.
The younger, less time spent in books.
It might be worth it, but
I don't know.
As well, they haven't got part of travel, but we have.
1350, 1159. Yeah.
We've got a bit of time village, a bit of $31,000 buy-in, I guess, deposit, thank you. Same as last year there. I think it's worth having a chat. I'm glad we've got Charlotte here as well about the recurrent charge as well. How that's calculated and where we get it from, and do we have to abide by it?
Yeah, so.
Just to throw it in.
Think about, sorry, 5 out of 6 recommendations. It's calculated within the Australian pension, so when pension goes, but our price goes up, so it's $20 for a single, 5% for income. It's basically against the Australian pension rate. I believe William just there is there's a bit high because they have more facilities to offer.
Yeah.
And activities on the other is a very structure which can be changed through a year. So eventually that's where we'll move everyone to. But it's the other ones are lifetime.
Yeah.
Regulatory.
Yeah.
Is the right to buy.
For.
The,
50 years for seeking
So is that a policy shift that should be brought through so in for the future? Because
it was,
with that recurrent charge, there's no to change in the future there to the next page people want to place in
yeah,
units.
it was,
Was it?
yeah. Well, it's in our new policy.
Because there's also no requirement to be.
No.
Yeah. No, I understand that.
Yeah.
But I'm saying you could literally have $2 million and be getting subsidised construction.
I guess it's shouldn't be judge it, judge it. Put against something against the assets potentially to
I mean, I just obviously had to deal with that in Renmark, and you fill out your assembly forms and you put your values and everything.
Yep.
They tell you how much the additional fees are for that. And basically, the more you got. System, yes, there's more services, but you pay a care fee.
So if you've been a bum all your life, get off pretty easy, don't you?
Well, even but I'm just making the point that that's not the same here. So as long as it is now back for the future, so that people be blocked next session to know if there's one comes up, it'll be different.
yeah, and that's the new contract model we're using. Yeah.
So
And that's
yeah, okay. Yeah, good. So you can see that I'm guessing we have the latest figures there. But we're looking at 324 fortnight for a single occupant and 378 for a couple per fortnight.
There's nothing to do about anything.
Okay.
We can't do anything about it. It is what it is. So, yeah.
usually the pension goes to years.
Yeah. I just got the stuff. It's just happened now.
Yeah.
3% of them.
Ben. Hasty with my formatting, I'm sorry. Right, cemeteries.
Yep, cemetery what is taken away from the procedure. So when we're looking at the cemetery plot, in terms of rights, we've got those fees a little bit more substantial with CPI. We've taken away some of the other fees and charges, so transfer in terms stone, plaque application fees, etc. So therefore we're only sending one invoice out when people do first take in terms by so that's why there's subtle changes in the document I'm reading it. It's in screen.
Yeah. So let's just bring it back.
Yeah.
Is there a point at which, because I mean, there's obviously, I'm not sure how pressed our cemeteries are for space, like physical space, and obviously it's getting buried in a cemetery and locally here is probably it's not an ever-growing thing. It's a diminishing trailer. So is there a point at which it's worth considering just a forever? There's your plot, there's your thing. We just avoid all these invoices.
Exactly what Ben.
So there's the one you buy the plot, it's forever. So other county stores are take 25-year leases. What we're saying is once we bought it, we have updating information. So we're transferring it to the next payment. So you can make it really easy. In terms of process like seeds, once we have into transfer, then have to raise an invoice, bill, for all the information on. So what we're saying is let's just when you'll get into that's potentially the family estate is there ready to pay for it. Then there's no ongoing fees for here's another placement of assets, here's another place, here's another transfer.
Because we were going 2 times. That's just well, that's not very nice.
Or I'm downtown, just used to.
Yeah.
If you don't pay, yeah.
That's the change here. So you can see 570 to 780. So that's including putting this into the interment right charge people, it's like Dan said, with the, that's the same with all.
So at the moment, we charge them every year and
You charge them for the internal right, so that's your plot, it's not Wisconsin. Then you charge them if they've matches into it or fixed sparks or if there's another research with. So we're not saying that the depth or the physical build like bearings, that's to be charged for the class situation on top, which is very little contribution from council from his paper, his pay fees and what the system, which will take some. Potentially what this will do is allow us to do more electronically in the future with our forms and be able to have a checkout shopping trolley to say, here's your one grade site, here's your 4 months by credit card, and then we will the ongoing potentially.
You sure you don't put up?
Some families use valid technology, so it's not free income.
Do Barry, something still put back in the
Yeah, so just some little changes there and some efficiency tweaks and some process.
As long as they're covering, you believe you're covering because TPIP is not 3 or 4% range.
Yeah, everything we're looking at there is a lot of support. Yeah.
Through the chair, I think it's $20,000 you'll see about the potentially we're talking about 22,000 in required spare. We have reinvested this year into some additional frequencies in business. So we are reinvesting whatever additional income we get. But it is break even on these payments.
Yeah. Community facilities, I mean, I don't think we need to talk too much about those, but that's the hire, what it costs to hire. Community group life there, we've got the 50% of charge down the bottom there as well. But other than that, it stayed pretty consistent with a 4.5% increase plus rating.
And how do you think that flowed with our power?
Our power?
Yeah, because I mean, obviously you're using a building, you're using energy, and energy price necessarily speaking enough.
No.
So again, it's just sort of saying, I'm sure I'm not sitting and trying to get anybody, just making sure that there's an offset there, that we are actually covering some.
Yeah, fair with that. What with that?
Well, obviously, I mean, there's a counter argument. These are all community things, and you're trying to make the facility available, but the high cost ability for tenants, build-ups, and you call it entry fees. Is it worth it? Maybe not. Maybe it's easier just to have it all. With asking the question because power is big cost, and it's a direct.
Do they bring every time? It's good.
Not for the Senate.
No.
That's if someone wants to use
Pictures. That would be.
That's it.
You do it silent, you're a tree boy.
That's it.
So Shiloh, might get you to jump in here. The red is what Shiloh's added in. There's been some things that have changed and some things that have happened this year that Shiloh wanted to sort of capture your time, didn't you?
Yes, yeah, so, with regard to dollars we're talking now? or-
Yes, sorry, yeah, dollars.
Yeah.
Dollars.
So, impounding fees, so, the weekend ones, so we have to get someone to do that, so we can for that. Not that we took that, but it should be a fee that we do. The same with, impounding fees, we might call that fee on the weekend. And I find then, so still think there should be a fee associated with that. Or one of the other guys actually put their own time in,
That's right.
then at least we're capturing something. Criminal on that, on budget, or pretty much.
It should be, you were right.
I was about to pick up January in 2015, we think all that 350.
Yeah.
That was to pick up time. Oh, that was plus overtime, plus travel, plus everything, 350 dropped. I mean, the dog impound is not, it's not the same as having a cinema, you know, so it's a cost that you're bearing because you're not, you have responsibility.
Mm.
Yep. And we should, no one should be subsidising that cost.
Yep.
That's yours to bear as far as it's concerned.
So it should be higher. Yeah,
It should be a call out, mate. Change it, we can put on. Yeah. Yeah, so it should be, there should be a flat. And then your timer. Just on it.
Those sort of call-outs, so.
But it's time and lieu, it's all of that sort of
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or we go, took you 3, 4, 5, took you 10 hours. That whole time needs to be built in.
So,
This time of travelling is a fair bit to start.
but then it's just personally talking, actually have. Well,
So can I ask in your outdoor contracts with any of the other team, is there an on-call call-out situation for anything that you could use as a benchmark for this, or are we the same if something gets thought out there, time and lieu at another time?
That's what some figures have been calculated from. To say if one of my businesses go feed the dog twice a day, then it's $50 or whatever to call them out. In terms of from my guys, some are on, they're also, flexible use of the vehicle, for example, as part of their duties. And this might be one they can, I guess, similar to before, let's incorporate into the package in terms of bringing in staff to actually physically do something. We're under the award that we work under, or the employee's hiring agreement, there's a minimum of 2 or 3 hours, depending if it's an hour. So,
Yeah.
if it's an in weekend work, et cetera, it's fixed. Yeah, so they come 5.
And that's what I'm alluding to from Scania, so I think you can use your own documentation to formulate, should that be based on those arrangements, because the end user should be paying, if you go to Melbourne College, to the guys at Penaroo, get a job done, minimum labour these days is $120 an hour, we shouldn't be any different.
Yep. As I said, this is a good thing.
Yeah.
Wasn't really.
The only thing is that they also have to pay for you. Well, right, because I mean, there's a lot of fees at the other, BR3, BR2. It's cost us a fortune, so it's all about fees.
It's which most do, so, yeah. So, yeah, it just depends on the individual who's done was.
To registrations, so you've increased the registrations, yes, you can see the trend lines that I'm glad that's catching on, Tony. It's catching up.
Change that over, right? No?
What's that?
We got an opportunity to change that over, call out speed or?
Yeah. Yes, we will.
But I think I'm just leaving that to Ben to find out in their contract to put it in and use that as the guide. If their call out is 3 hours at X amount, use that as the fee.
Yeah.
So we benchmark price of fees against similar size councils in South Australia this side. We sit closer to the top of the block. So, but I think the increase is justified in 2 years. So, yeah, they're not significant increases, but keeping us in echelon.
Yeah.
It is cheap, definitely cheap.
Yeah, and then you've added some for business.
Yes, due to an increase in slightly because in a lot of cases, well, in a number of cases, my officers or the staff and them significant amount interested in dogs. So you need more recovery efforts on a perspective.
Do we have many people in the district who want 20 dollars?
There's a few groups. But they get to that point with that 3 or 4 letters at the same time. So, yeah. So, and they don't free. So they will fall within the definition.
Doesn't matter if they're doing 25 bucks, they're getting more.
Yeah, that's the registration fee. Registration fee. I agree, yeah.
Cat traps. Cool, thanks. Mowing private allotment, so. Can you talk us through this one, Charlotte?
Yeah, so where we do tractor into for bike, for example, or litter emissions, for example, we've done well, bike heads. For urban frames because I've got to get up there times before we get to that point.
But it's cheap by the day.
What I've got. So,
Are they got insurance?
yeah, they take all the bus.
They're more
Usually they can time. If you check, if you don't.
I'd imagine it would be like one group to get them to come here.
Yeah, so, I think continue use.
Get through.
You want to hang around to it, don't see, but you can stand up. We've got your, this is permits and what have you. It's brought down.
So actually,
Yeah, secret.
so it's realistic to see increase the green.
Yeah.
I think they've been working reasonably to push back on.
Yeah.
And you with the time that's then start building the others and getting.
Yeah.
Still. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the proxy out of the area.
That's right.
More stuff.
Yeah.
What's the health room up there? That's just the room use, isn't it?
That's the
Dentist, yeah.
it's called
Yeah.
uses.
Yeah, that's, but 68 bucks was that for a single?
But that'll be your biggest profit.
It's just a high space.
Yeah.
Give it a,
Yeah.
Just,
Yeah, but again, we didn't have get otherwise the insurance and time. Electricity connection things.
if that's assuming you wouldn't, if that person was coming with $4, whatever.
Yeah. Sure. Something you can try to do.
Because that's not hearing.
Yeah.
Keep saying.
We've got signage ban, you've increased the cost recovery, 125.
Yep, so the design supply. So looking at cost coverage, so in terms of the sign of it's a business streetlight sign, bumping those fees up to a single 125. It is more than what we were charging previously plus CPI, so we're trying to look at cost coverage. Where businesses do provide specialty signs that are will generally they pay for some delivery to that. Yeah, free job. So it's making etc. There's normally a system through with the larger business ones. We're talking street lights here.
So that's installation, like,
Yes. Yeah. So basically the same as street light signs. potentially we could just go to existing posts. Sometimes you just in and reconfigure the existing screens to match something to need. So we don't get this year. There's probably maybe 3 that we've installed. You know, the business owners have been pretty pretty good with that. There was one room we installed. Yeah, again, there was cross recovery in 24.
Very good. And then you've got your CWMS as well.
Yeah, so CWMS, those charges are based on increased maintenance costs within a budget. Once we pay all the capital upgrades and etc. in the background. So it is a more than CPI. So 775 instead of 740. 375 from 374 vacant land. So again, that's based on the calculation we have scenes with what contracts run that service.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, I'm just addressing that. So reports for council and name for the because they need to go to Daytona by the end of May to get into invoices for registration in the new year. So you'll only really get one opportunity to see these. So you'll get a report next month with regards to them. If there's any change you want to make, that's the time.
When you bring it back, one that change up top, so we know that's.
But still, because it is a difference to the usual images every year.
Mineral pits.
So this is for our road pits. As you can see, it's flatlined again. So previously we haven't upgraded rubber rebar contributions. So we've updated that by anywhere of 10%. So for arable land, cropping land, and crop. In terms of rental for the Borough Pit area, there is a little bit of an increase in that to try to encourage rubber pit owners to provide us more space, etc. So the Chamber is aware of a current situation with the Borough Pit, so we're trying to identify if there's some wriggle room in that to make it more compensational for the property owners. We haven't had a lot of pressure from some of the property owners for rate increases, but as you can see, they haven't increased over 3 years since the policy was first brought in. Moving right along, so section 221 approves. That's for work to alter a road. So it could be someone's putting in residential management to fix something up on their adjacent property. It might be some wells, application from testing of soil sampling, etc. for some of the mining applications, or wells or service station testing, etc. for moving of groundwater, etc. So generally we don't get a lot of those applications. We've got that probably more than CPI 125 instead of potentially 110. It's currently 105 at the moment. So, swimming pools. We have a reasonable good uptake of people using the pools of late. There's a subtle increase each year. We're looking at trying to just build a little bit more revenue from our pools. Our cost of doing business has gone up. We pay our canteen operators and our lifeguard operators for doing that service. Costs in the order of about 40,000 a year to run both pools. We recoup, which we'll see in budget review, recovering about 20 to 25,000. So this is just trying to sneak up a little bit, just as if we can. So it's not trying to recover the whole cost of running a pool, it's just trying to get a little bit more. We have updated in the last 12 months pay system, etc. So we're going to a more technology friendly version of that. If POS machining installed, point of sale. So yes. Waste management. Our waste transfer stations cost us $120,000 to $130,000 a year to operate. We take our recycling bulk bins from here down to Lagan Creek, where it gets recycled. All around the waste gets either crushed or pulverised, etc., and be disposed of on site. Gets removed. Recycling, we do remove some of our steel products and metal products to recyclers. Some of that is free of charge. Get rid of that. So we're just aligning ourselves with a little more price increase to try and capture some of those increased costs, etc. If we take a snapshot of where we currently sit at the moment, our actuals for 22-23 was 17,000 income, 23-24 was 23,000, 24-25 was 21,000, and currently looking at 10,000 recoveries for our transfer stations. So potentially increasing our fees, we will be able to better manage some of our processing of our transfer station materials. I guess we are aware that unless you live in the townships, you have an option to get the 240 litre rubbish bin that comes with a recycling bin as well. If you live in the rural areas, they do use this service. So in terms of our administration response to that, we do subsidise people coming to use our waste transfer stations, but they do cost us significant money to run. So we're getting on average about a 10% recovery of costs incurred.
But that seems you just went 23, 2010, and we're 70% of the way through the year. So does that mean you're expecting about 13 grand this year? So such a drop on last year. Does that tell you that? Or where's the fall off?
Potentially, people may not be bringing stuff to the.
So it's just traffic.
Yeah,
it's volume of traffic.
Purely what goes through the F1.
Yeah, no, just curious as to how many visitors versus what's the money through the EFTPOS. So, for instance, I use, we cleared our waste transfer, but BW, it's $3,000. So I'd be interested to know, is the traffic changed or is it just the dollar that have lessened?
Yep, we don't have that potentially in the council report as part of this.
And being that the bin collection service uses the dump side of like the waste side, still to a degree, is that cost offset fully utilised so that the bin charge is actual versus, so in other words, if there's a 90 grand loss in the waste services side, is that 100% attached to people using those transfer stations, or is the bin fee?
The town bins don't into the fourth.
Wouldn't they walk up until just recently? And yes, I think some of it's still going to landfill.
So, yes, the waste transfer station purely is a waste transfer station. So, in terms of the landfill is different. In terms of the curbside collection, curbside recycling, that is different. So, this is purely for waste transfer stations. So, we have uplift bins that commercially it costs about $1,500 per load going box supports, plus the disposal each month, and sometimes there's extra drainings or an extra connection. We do connect the Pinaroo bins, we bring them back in. We're talking the hook lift bins, the semi bins. We do swap them over, dispose of the rubbish, then take it to the bin. So that is the waste transfer cost. The rest of it is in a different area.
Yeah.
So a total waste collection figure is in the order of about $440,000 ish. Costed all of our. So,
did you want to talk future issues? Whilst we've got the time.
Yes, we can talk future issues. So currently,
Thanks for joining.
Yep. So again, political months ago that we're continuing to try reducing the landfill consumption. So instead of putting it here, we're taking it to Adelaide Hills for disposal. So we are incorporating a PK levy and disposal gate fee for them disposing it in their area. That's to compensate not doing retaining what we've got in landfill. So we can then utilise the landfill for removing some waste transfer stuff into there instead of carting that waste transfer stuff to the ladies. We currently have a favourable tender response back from Adelaide Hills, which I was speaking to the former CEO there, John Manders CEO. We do have a commitment council to say, here is what it's going to cost us for a 5 to 6 year term for disposal at their facility. I won't become a member because Murray Bridge and other councils are. We don't provide the same service, so we'll be an associate member. So the bonuses, yeah, $1 over $60 sort of thing. So it's not substantial to have that. That's why I haven't seen it. Yeah,
It's $1 a ton. So
yes.
This is just the disposal.
Yes,
it's a drop.
So that's where we sit with the disposal of the trial of taking out waste down to there. We've also got the disposal costs, etc. contract. We've also got the we did provide an update on curbside collection. There wasn't a favourable response that would meet our level of service requirements from the one tenderer that responded. We've now gone back to that whole group of tenderers again in the last week and a half and said, are you interested in it? We have some response. We've now gone back to them formally and say, please reprice what we provided 6 months ago. But I would like to say that we would have some competitive pricing put forward. But my word on the street is I think we're going to struggle.
Yeah.
Purely based on the feedback we received is it's not enough to run full truck for the week. Therefore, we're going to be paying a full tow equivalent to Coorong Council run a truck for the whole week. At the moment, we only really use it 2 days. In terms of even if we were to jump in bed with our sister council in Corinda, that would only be maybe 2.5 days. So it's still less than what they need to be actively participating.
Maybe just jump.
In terms of pick up the efficiencies of current contractors that are providing service in local area, is it enough for Carrot to Carrot to be able to then combine their web service with us? I mean, at the moment we're probably getting feedback. We're still going to go through the process. It's not great news, but we'll go down next week. We're going to report back to council in May. So in May, the report will be: here's the response from the tender again. Here's the cost and the potential contract with disposing of landfill at Bridge, Adelaide Hills, if you wish to proceed with that, and what our solution moving forward is to our truck at landfill site, etc., etc. So,
realistically,
I think we're going to have to look at. I think we have to buy. I think we have to talk to Corinda Council and say, would you want us to do a pick up your service as well? And then I believe they may be looking at their service provider at the moment and seeing if there's some efficiencies. So potentially that may be an option to council is to say, if we want utilisation is probably going to be the same now, but if we were to pick up Corinda, what does that look like? Does that give us a truck for 10 years? What's the hope for that? What does that mean for the landfill hole here? Or do we continue to take it to Hills and leave the hole here as well? We have done some more research in regards to depreciation for the hole. We need to, I guess, get back to council and talk to you about that. So my understanding is I don't think we're depreciating the hole as much as what it should be. So we need to give back that pricing and where we sit with that. But I'll put that in May in a council report.
Sorry, again, quickly. That started out was co-service with Corinda. So that would be coming back to what we used to do. So nothing wrong with that, but that's already in. Second thing is absolutely being appreciated enough. Campbell been years ago in our term about compaction of rubbish. What's the alternative to compact stuff down into things I do at times to build a pyramid or something like that. But just from a transport point of view, we pay a lot of meterage of waste that's so fluffy. If it was squashed and compacted and put down, it gets so much more into a semi-load of that. And last one was about our understanding here. We've been told that the EPA may give one more licence, but beyond that, forget about it. Maybe get the one. So that needs to come in your report. Obviously, we need to understand, is this a short-term, medium-term fix? I guess that's part of transport to bring to this. It's all on good to say we get the whole. Are we actually allowed to have another stop? Or is that it? Should be looking at return.
All we can use, if we do dig another hole, is the EPA going to turn around 3 years and say, no, it's all going to go.
Yeah. So through the chair, we go formally now. So in terms of compaction in the current landfill, because we're not putting general waste in it, the hard product and stuff we're putting in it doesn't have the compaction need. So even when we're putting general waste in, mixing up with our curbside waste, that had a better compaction effort. We're not putting a compactor over it. We have looked at an option to bring a compactor in to get more volume, but the cost factor of that was not worth it at the moment. So in terms of what our current process is, because we're not putting general waste with it, curbside waste, we don't have that proper compaction. So if we continue to put in hard waste only, we're then going to have voids, which is not really using the whole effectively and efficiently. But ultimately, we might have another 10 or 15 years left if we're only putting some of the waste transfer material in. So it's one consideration. Two, my understanding is we don't have approval for the 5th cell, we're up to the 4th one now, but it's unlikely we would have to expand the current geographical area of our licence, and that's where we may not get a 6th cell approved. So it's not a fait accompli to get the 5th one, and potentially we're going to have to go through a full process for the 6th one. Bring in mind the issue we have in dealing with waste transfer stations. We're probably aware that some of our infrastructure there is probably not to current code requirements. So if we are going to continue going down that stretch, we need to make sure that hard stand areas, covered areas, make sure it's soft plastics and very quiet plastics don't end up with waterways. But things to consider when looking at transport stations. But obviously, it's a very political community area which we need to make sure we're users that don't have options goes off the into. So it picks up. He's almost 10 years old. When we first started talking, it was 66,000 Ks, now about 300,000. Generally, with those, the trucks will last 300,000 or 10 years. The bodies will normally deteriorate because of the product. Our body is reasonably good condition. So I don't have an issue with extending a year or two for that truck. It's got that in it, so we've still got a little bit of decision-making time for that. So we don't have to rush it with a new truck yet. But obviously, lead time on trucks is going to be substantial. We'll make a decision what to put in there. Also, the decision on when we look at the landfill, we need to do it during the dry season, so it doesn't get wet and messy, etc. There's also opportunity that because our waste transfer officer truck is only half time, doing truck, potentially he can start to then dig the hole for us in that extra time. Instead of currently he's doing irrigation and mowing and town maintenance, etc. So there is that option to start to dig the hole throughout the year. That at the end of the year we will then have most of it, trim it and shape it. So, but yeah, all that will come back to council in May. But in terms of fees and charges, we're looking at trying to, I guess, bump up our revenue. It is a force, people do have to use it. We're recovering about 10%, 10 to 15% of our total costs. So we are contributing to the people that use it, but we're just trying to break that back in.
So the transfer stations.
Yeah.
Just to reiterate though, that compaction was also about transfer stuff. So recyclables as an example. There's councils that are waste services that are smashing up grinding bottles, using them for other purposes, although once the other bottles go to 10 cents, you probably have that as an argument. But even plastics and that can get fairly compacted.
Yeah. We also do talk about why some of the recycling does go to landfill free, because we do get reimbursed for transport of that. So there was a couple of grand that we got in as income, the grant schemes. So I do actively look. So, yeah.
Okay. So we'll come back with this. We'll double check all of these and bring them back to you. But other than that, we will add them to the system.
And yeah, well, but you know, what we could do here, so yeah. So. Please and charges, thank you very much.
So the rentals, you've got nothing for the Pinner over 50, that's just dropped off, change there or?
They don't like renting it out to people.
I don't know, maybe that's I have no clue, it's just there's figures there and there's a down trend arrow, which we're all up on the trend line. Trend line.
No, just don't like renting it out, but really, yeah.
Well, the Pinner over 50s there has gone from figure 55, 60 and then a trend line to nothing, to zero, I'm just trying to understand what that means.
Need to fill a gap up.
Is there under other rentals, miscellaneous?
We don't do any other rentals for that.
I think they run.
They are rentals. Costs.
So they get the income from, we get all the expense.
It's about two rentals a year, I'm thinking that,
But you're gonna be rent.
Yeah.
It's like,
they'll get two rentals there, no.
There's only, yeah, so, yeah, here you go. There you go. There's no- yeah, big, which- Let's just try to make,
They use.
any state. Well,
Did you,
Are they?
So.
Okay.
Thank you. Right, final step. So buildings asset management plan is the gift that just keeps on giving. We are so very close. I don't believe until I see it. But we have got preliminary fix. So a bit like what Ben did, I just wanted Shiloh to sort of walk through what we've got, what it means, and what the process will be from here. Because it's not so much that here it is and we just accept it and then let's just go on, deal with it. This is actually going to be a process that involves all of us. But yeah, I'll get Shiloh to talk you through what we've received. So we haven't received the whole plan, but we've got some numbers. We still need to interrogate the numbers with the consultant.
Yep.
And we need to find out exactly what they are for. And but Shiloh's
Scroll.
you go.
Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Sorry. Keep going.
Do you want to give Shiloh the
If
Stop. That's what I say that. Right. Okay. So, to conditions funding possible quality is governed by this. As you know, we're engaged to facility condition assessment, prepare the building asset management plan, which we're, as Jason said, fingers crossed, getting much closer to. So the last person that needed to do any assessment was out either Friday last week or Monday this week. Sure, either here. So
I will do that. Shiloh wants to about taking this long.
yeah.
But the delay from October supposed to be done to now. Shiloh and his team have been. Before that, we've spoken, but since then they have been.
So eventually they engaged two people from Adelaide to finish off what they needed to. They had been trying to use local contractors like we asked them to, which so we originally asked them to use as many local people as possible. So that was one of the government factors around the savings and a little bit just to get engaged with the people that we put them to. So then we asked them to engage with the people from inside to finish off. So the information stuff that you budget meeting the other day, but keep in mind it is not the final product, it's getting much closer to the final. So it includes clear separation between defects, maintenance, renewals, improved indexation assumptions, and more structured forecasts across the portfolio. However, as I just said, it's not the final report. We continue to discuss information and 7 pieces that we either think are missing or haven't been included in the information that we have in the independent. But Paul would see that in a minute, but they have got another piece in there which we don't understand because we need to interrogate those situations.
So it's referred to. So,
yeah.
But you can see the difference between the three costs there. So the defects is basically it's outstanding.
Yeah. That's because we haven't done any works in our buildings for 20 odd years, 25 odd years. That's the
Yeah.
balance. So so basically I want you to understand the scale of what we're looking at across the district, the type of work that they have identified, how those works might be prioritised, and how the information supports future budgeting decisions. So if you scroll down, you would have seen this table before. I'm not sure if it's in exactly this format, but you'll see that they do pieces across the year in both defects, plan maintenance, and forecast goods, and all the total bottom. So
Just to go back. Last year we budgeted $50,000. So you can see that about probably 10 grand too much.
Yeah.
And the renewals, you can see the big jumps. 2031, I'll show you what that was. It's in one of the, yes, you'll see it. This is, can't stress this enough. We don't have to do all this.
yes.
Yeah.
So the defects and stuff we should be fixing up, whether we do
So I'm about to run you through what the defects are, and what that entails, and why they should be looked at.
Yeah.
Basically, the defects represent issues that are identified during the inspections that affect the building performance, safety, compliance, usability, and they. So it could be a switchboard, it could be disability access if it's like a public building, it could be the septic tank, for another example, public toilet. So it really depends. The planned maintenance is around the lifetime activities, so to keep the buildings effectively and reduce deterioration over time. And renewal is obviously involves replacing it once they meet the end of their useful life, and this category represents the largest share of forecasted expenditure across the portfolio.
Air conditioners,
Yeah, roofs, gas, stormwater, etc. So one of the most important elements of this update is that it identifies different categories and books. So actually, before we do that, I'll just go through. So as you can see, the green line is the forecast renewals. So it jumps right up to the end. That's basically because it's a 10-year plan. Just drop everything into the end for a lot of stuff. The mid program spike, I'll show you in a minute. And the rest of the time is around not even in the forecast. We scroll to the next page, which this is, and that was just around. I'm going to go out. So I'm going to the first spreadsheet, please. Yep. Okay, so this is the type of stuff that they have been across the board for all the books now. I'm not going to go through all the lists again. We can run through a few of them. For example, so we've got placement structure and cost for the senior citizens. 450,000, 48,000, floor covers 30,000, fixtures and fittings 65, and then services. Now I don't know what's in the services, so it's one of the things we need to interrogate. Find out what's in the services, but yeah, as well, yeah. So you can see the total life of what is expected for in that second column D for each type of category, and then the remaining life and then the replacement are now valued in the next column. So, for example, at the construction's got another 22 years in it. The floor coverings got 10, fixtures are 15, and the services are 10. So, 10 years, we've done it to do a great deal, but we start for what we're looking to do.
anything.
Yeah, if look at Bristol Institute, for example, the structure in the middle. So 13, 14, 15, 16, something. You just scroll down to perfect. Roof cladding, 80. That's going to be 0. Floor coverings, obviously, it's all wooden. It's not just polishing, but it's shrimping and polishing. Because fittings and services again. But you can see they're almost at the end of their life cycle. Again, 10 years. So at that point, maybe the council makes the decision, well, we don't put any money into it, we just keep it living one of these, which I think has been current for about.
Just jump in with remaining. So you steal your thunder.
That's okay. You jump in, discuss it. So
Having the remaining life is the organisation process piece important that's been missing. Because what Charlotte's doing is just sort of, oh, this has been the loudest, I'll bring this back. Let's fix this. Here, step one, what is due to be replaced now?
Yeah.
And then that forms, and then Charlotte goes and inspects, and Charlotte, do we do this? This is another 5 years worth of money. Yeah, well, yes, do this. This many years it's going to be, we need to bring that forward. That's the start of the budget process. It's not on feel, it's not on, it's based on the data condition.
And so, or it gets to you guys, so the spotlight system, red, green, yellow. I'll bring it up, green, blue, highlight against it. So I don't think you need to do this. Red, this is one you want to do. Green, do. So this will fill in. So, for example, for an institute, I would recommend for the where's that?
Yeah. Well, no, it's.
Yeah.
Is that all?
Yeah, just think of it. So, yeah, they put cameras in the places, so yeah, assuming that they've made a reasonable assessment.
I think it's what we need to interrogate it, but it's, yeah.
So,
Read about building.
So,
Still getting there for years. Yeah, there's no.
I think the biggest concern for me with this stuff is like you take the CWA, the very first meeting I sat in here, and we can bring it up in the minutes of that meeting, although it's a confidential item, was a rough bet quote and a list of issues that the building contractor who was going to be doing the works of that area listed off of the structural faults in that building, and yet that says it's got a structural life of 30 years.
so we replaced a lot of the issue.
Well, we only replaced the western wall. We didn't do anything with the floor. I mean, there were stumps in the floor, there's holes.
Yep.
There's patches on the floor where you've got tape around it, so don't walk here because you'll fall through. And yet that doesn't list any of that, and that's not repairs and maintenance because that's structural.
Yeah. So, I agree. That's sensitive.
If I read that,
So,
yeah.
All of us walked one floor.
Yep.
that's what it's just.
Essentially, so or less kitchen vinyl.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, floor coverings and all that positioning needs to be concerned about that because that's superficial. It's this what we're looking for: structural integrity, electrical, fit for purpose. And that CWA building, that's the classic one because it leads into a question that's in here, and that's perhaps why the answer isn't very detailed. Neither is this report. Yet we're in possession of something 4 years ago that's quite damning about the building.
Maybe the builder just wanted the job.
No, he didn't want it. It was the opposite. It was the argument to not do it.
Yeah.
Anyway, I guess those two things, particularly in public, people see them. It's like, well, they're conflicting story, and of course, the one that conflicts the most is a confidential document. So, how does that prove?
Yeah. So, and again, this is subjective. So that was the builder's opinion of the building. This is whoever they have to do the building. So it's how they assess the that's the problem.
So we're going to spend all this money the same as we did get an independent advice of doing all this to get the same.
That's my fear because, like I said to Jason, I'll walk around the house, which is a wooden start floor, same as the CWA is, and I know exactly which ones are not right. I had to cut holes in the floor and fix them because you can feel your floor springy.
Yep.
And you can do that when you walk around, you can feel parts of the whole floor that move. And I guarantee you go to the CWA, it'll be exactly the same. And that's what that report, that original one, which was just said, don't know how many would expect stomach. And so when I see that, this is because until you know, and that was the point of this report was until you know that, why would you spend any other money on building, painting or doing the floor covering or anything else until you know the structure's okay?
There's no mention of disability access.
So,
I think that's coming up.
well, I was going to discuss, so unless you do structural change to a building, you do not need to change. So that's the building can stay as it is. It doesn't need disability access.
Does it? Okay.
No, it doesn't really.
That's right.
Unless you do structural change to the building.
No, all that we did.
No, that would be considered renewal of the building, and it's not changing the structure. The footprint has not changed. So it's only when you change the footprint of the building. So if I push, for example, the entrance to this right out to the road, then the disability access that we currently have, I need to change to bring it up. So, but I didn't change the footprint of the building.
Is that what?
Yes, I also got that in my things I want to do.
But then what's your responsibility as the provider to provide stable shits right for the people you build for?
So they take they fire the building in the knowing that this is the suitability. So they're also taking responsibility.
No one can sue us if they walked into that building and tripped over that step.
It's a known step. It's a step. It's always been a step. It's the building is
It's not bad, you'd be the one sitting in court defending.
We
no, not so much you don't, because it's a stepping stone, and you can, because we haven't done anything to that, there's no reason that we need to react to DDA requirements.
that answers that, do nothing to do it.
That what? If you're in business, you would get, like, for instance, if you didn't put up signs on the hay shed, even after your hay shed to say, risk of falling apart, stand around here. I was scanning chains across the end of open bays so people fall down pits and everything. Had a good place.
Yep.
Follow.
So that's LHX law, which is different.
I understand the video, but then there's use of things as well.
Yep.
So, yes.
So if you want to do that, you can as a council. If you want to bring your buildings and all of them, and spend the money, you can.
No, the point of what.
No, the point is, I'm saying you get rid of the shit ones. It's not.
But it's also understanding the question is to say, well, we can do a short-term lease. Let's say that'll be based on 10 years. So what would you need to do on that building to have a 10-year life, for instance? You obviously we shouldn't have a floor that you can pull through. I mean, that's just, as a landlord, you're not meant to do that when you have your own. So there's that part, but then there's, if you're sitting with Thompson, did all this work in here to make it look nice, but granny can still fall through the floor. There's a disconnect in it.
So the flooring, for example, that comes up with the issue, which potentially there are, but I'll address that as a flooring issue, not as DDA. Yeah. Two separate, there's different legislations here.
Yeah, no, I understand there's legislative, but the fact is that the flooring got to take around and patch the.
Please, they started that.
No,
Four.
well,
Again, this is not true. So there'll be more stuff that comes inside that will explain.
We've got some,
What is this? Yeah.
What do you mean? You need to explain this.
Yeah.
because I believe in the old before where Pearl Hall was looked at, it was like apartments end of life, and now it's got floor covering.
Again, it's about who does the assessment.
Well,
Should
I guess that worries me because
But my thing is, if anyone gets that.
Get life back in.
yes, so
Yes, yeah.
right, it makes it very difficult for people to change whether that's the next crew or the previous crew to make good decisions because it's binary time. It's this as a fact.
We've been exposing ourselves to people asking questions, saying, look, this is what we've been told it's at, and then we get a conflicting report going totally against what we've said. We've got to justify it.
I think you saw the CWA that was the first pilot done 3 years ago.
Yeah.
I think the CWA was the building. And even that, I don't think ties up with this. But keep going, sorry.
This
This is really confusing.
For the biddings, they're saying it's about $30,000 needs to be spent in new fire.
Yeah. Yeah, so if we expand it again,
Again, we need to ask. We've got that in
yeah, so it's 1,000 there, place items.
there. New fire, flooring protection.
Again, would you do that? You
I
may
know,
not.
I have to get the key and go over there and find out what the floor like, because there's a difference between renewing something just because you want it to be at a certain level versus is it fit for use right now, being used for? And as the provider of the building, I think, fully area. Otherwise, it's renewed the license, say happy days, go.
Yeah, so
Here it's your fault.
most of the defects that have been highlighted include like aging electrical infrastructure, salt damp and moisture ingress in places, septic system issues and replacement requirements, fire service upgrades. Did a lot on the fire service side of stuff. Aging fuel systems and interior and external deterioration just around painting and
Which building's that on, sorry?
that's across the board.
Across the board.
Yeah.
So if we don't build new places, we have
There are yes and no. It depends on how it's built. Is the answer to that question. So yeah, it depends.
that's one of the biggest issues for the administration and following chambers is low use of buildings, lots of buildings doing the same purpose. And what is the, like Neville's email, to what point do you maintain something for it to maintain its current use? Because the expectations of the ladies to inquire, the expectations the ladies said are not quite so happy, some of them, because they're scared. But it is the building. So to bring it up to some new standard, no one wants to do that, including us. But also don't fall through the floor and they feel or fall down and step and brush their hip, get sepsis and be in deep trouble, then morally how do you sleep at night? So it's trying to find where's the line in that, and it's going to get worse over the next 10 years because these buildings aren't getting any younger. And depending on which report we read, it's hard to know whether they're at that point now, about to be like Prula Hall. What's the use of the Prula Hall and what do you do to it? Well, based on that, we don't do anything because the floor company never cares.
Yeah.
But we got a report not that long ago that said it was in deep trouble. The septic wasn't working, the toilet was unusable, the wall was going to fall away.
I'm still cracking in.
It's
Yeah, but there's nothing structural because this says it's fine.
yeah, it is saying that though. Yeah.
Well, it said there it was okay for floor covering, fitting a structure, 11 years.
3 years for the.
No, that's floor covering. That's just. That's all.
So there, yeah. And fixtures and fittings is 5. Yeah, but again, this is all the sort of stuff we need to find out. And we need to find out what is floor coverings, what is fixtures and fittings, what is service.
Yeah.
Right. So
And how's the report if you sell things on?
that's right. And then but if you look at the defects as well, sure, they just chat us, right, do this now. And it's like, can you make responses?
Yeah.
It's not.
You get that. Let me-
It's not. That's there.
Yeah.
Hence, it needs to be triaged.
Yeah. And the other thing, you hear that it's material. So it's look at the Murray Main Street toilet, right? So you got structure. We're going to spend $44 a year for structure.
Yeah.
When really it's in 15 years we're going to spend that. It's like
Then we all cladding there replaced 15 years ago, less than that. The whole. Yeah, and it says it's only got 20 years to go. But, they're saying
Sure.
15 years.
Sure.
but the services so it goes into the
I
toilet.
think septic, electrical. I think it's essential for everything that all the services that come into the building and the service in the building.
Yeah, so that's something that needs to be done. So we should.
Yeah.
Zero.
Yeah.
Well, I think that because that's got concrete, where the depleter has concrete cancer, it's affecting the septic and the substructure, but it doesn't say that in the structural model.
Wonder where they're getting their pricing.
My guess would be they use a estimator, the same that most.
I think
I think he's getting a few zeros sometimes.
It's better pay it all, make sure the estimator is calculated. Versus the metro price.
Again, more.
so. Chinese. These chats should have been. Yeah, this is the preparation, and then Charlotte goes out to the brings to the budget. They talk about cucumber. But I wanted Charlotte and to say this is what we've got. This is what it means. We don't know. This is what it means.
our procedure, our process and how that's going to be improved greatly.
Yeah.
We need to interrogate the hell out of this, and that's obvious, and it's going to.
Yeah.
But we just sort of wanted to say, yeah, keep going with your presentation on what you've gone through. And
So basically, what about the traffic light system, so that would be what we do before we bring to you a budget, is basically triage what's in there and then come up to you with a budget, figure out what we think it needs, and then you guys can go through that with and go, no, well, we don't agree with that. So we'll put something back here. So yeah, so that'll be where we go. Sorry, I sort of lost where I was.
that's all right. It'll be what you find out. This information here, once we get it back, is really going to help with the resolution that Trevor and Campbell have got as well. Because we've got, not only have we got the previous year spend, because we do, we've got our own numbers. We've got projected future spend. What else? So we're going to get a sort of a full cost look at a particular building. And we can talk about it openly then.
Yeah, so the defects are the first stage of priority. What I was going to get to next, which is the next spreadsheet. So again, as I said before, they reflect safety obligations, compliance requirements, protection of building condition with regards to like painting and that sort of stuff. But and the continuation of service to the community. So, and then again, you need to figure out, well, what buildings do we need and what buildings do we want to use continually for the service? That's right. So this is the, for example, the whole defects. Now, I don't know if install what a management system is. It says refer to the report. I don't know if I can tell you what that number is. It could be to do with the cracking in the so what's the better we choose?
Can we stay? So, I mean, at the end of the day, as you well know, that in the very, very first meeting, it was you that said there'd been an underpinning quote done previously and it was substantial, and that was for the RSL time, and the tension wall as well. And back in that meeting, so 2022, it was, is this structural, like crack structural integrity issues, or is it just superficial? And we went over there and the table that's been put across the cracks to see what's closing and opening, a bit like Chris's old house. And that question remains unanswered to this day.
Well, hopefully when they get the final report to us, it will be
within these figures. So back in the other spreadsheet, it said that the structure was 20 years. It said original structure was 60. Well, I debate that because in our asset management plans, it said the building of that statute, the structure is 100 years. So that's firstly 60 and 100. It's a big difference for depreciation. Secondly, it says there's 20-year life in the structure. Well, that's telling me straight away there's no underpinning issues, there's no anything. It's not here in the works required. So it's like, well, does that mean that it just was never a thing? Because that is the quintessential need for this document, is to say that's what we said at the time. We spent, we've redone change rooms, artist things, and some work on this. We stopped at saying, until we know if the building's in, but what's the point of pouring money?
Yeah, this is what I'm saying like, structure's fine. You want to stop the cracking, spend $1 million.
Well, they're not saying that.
Well, no, that's what the other report's saying.
Yeah, so that's
This one's saying the structure from their point of view is fine. I guess another report is saying if you want to stop those cracks opening and closing, everybody.
If that's what it says, I'm happy with that. But
A structural engineer did go through this.
this is not saying that structurally the building is sound. Because that question has been specifically asked and on the books.
this is superficial expenditure unless we know that the first thing they need to say is, yes, that building is structurally sound. It's going to last you X amount of years.
again, I don't have final reports.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we need to say in that one. Which they start with.
Now, which we provide the information.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
We were told when we walked over there and had a visitation of that building way back with multiple CEOs and things ago, and told that there was watering system put in for the underpinning back in the day. That was there to keep the clay state. And when we asked about that, it had been paved up for bitumised over and whatever. And so it hadn't been operating for some time long.
20 years.
Yeah. And it's like, so there was a treatment put in place to try and reduce or help with the cracking. And so it just leaves you wondering, because again, it's about strategic investment. It's saying, do you spend money on a building? Any building, doesn't matter which one it is. You don't want to spend anything in the next 5 years if you know that it's only 8 years before you're in some sort of serious trouble.
Yeah.
Because some change then is going to have to talk up. So, and I'll start down those conversations with locals. Would you spend $2 million on the hall that needed to be done? Now, there's a segment of the community that would say, absolutely, it's more important. It ain't going anywhere. Keep your hands off. Matter of fact, it was said during the CFS discussion. But then there's a lot of the community saying, no, why would you do that?
I think this is what me and Trevor do, is we go through the buildings, use this information, and say, this building here, we don't think we should renew it. Keep using it to the end of that. But another one, we're going to keep using that, so let's renew it.
And that's what this was done with this one. The original motion that got this happening 3 years ago.
You're not going to be able to go and ask what you would do here. This is going to be a decision that has to be made. We're not going to continue funding the building. That's what it is. So either knock down.
Also, strategic, so for instance, that example, the RMSL is going to be cracking in the wall, depending on the reports. The report might say, which we're hoping to get, east wall, X amount, do the underpinning, and your life is infinite again.
Yep.
RSL, no, that's beyond that, that's done. That was out. The community might be okay with saying, okay, remove the RSL, later addition, and go back to the core institute that was there since 1912 or 1914. But when do we reckon we'll get that?
Because they've finished all their inspections now, so they were in the process of writing.
August once they're finished doing stuff is the last thing.
Just outline it. The report's going to be vastly different to what they put in there, because that's putting up any flares at all. That's saying still pretty good, guys. And if that's the case, that's
it may be that they stay years. I don't know. Such a
until the job is free.
So again, on this spreadsheet, it would require traffic lighting. So stuff that we can come back to you and say, okay, this spend needs to be directed. But again, we need to interrogate data better. Final report. So the limitations of what currently the figures are their own estimates until you get into the process. And so if, for example, we start using this, we would have estimates, we would start getting estimates from builders around December, January, so that we had numbers, solid numbers to give you in budgeting.
Well, you'd have to double anything that they got written there.
But the assumption should be written in the report. They're based on forecast construction. They're not detailed project scopes, and they do not represent a committed capital program. So it's just estimates based on estimation. Essentially. Bullshit. This is advice to bring cursor to the full building access management plan. So with regards to what happens next, once we get the final report, we're digging into the numbers and then the report and bring the report to you, and we need to focus our attention.
Focusing more.
So we got more buildings on that line?
Being strong way out, every building assessed. So they're all.
Do you know councils that are doing this at the moment, using the same company?
We got recommended this company, and then we went because I knew that I think you only had two.
I had three. The number was astronomical. The other one was about double this price, and this one was to us by
Yeah.
I just
I've spoken to.
just be curious to see what another council has and see how generic this is. It's just some little system and that's thrown figures.
Yeah.
I'm not totally right. Be interested to see if they've actually gone to the effort of doing this or they're not, because I feel like used.
We met up, they don't get keys, so yeah, the contract.
This is just.
The reality is that this was done for three purposes. The first one was to try and determine what the structural integrity and the modularised setup was for each building as a snapshot in time.
Yep.
Two was to create plans for the future to say, when is the electrical board up? When is the roof due? When is the floor due? You know, yes, you can have floor coverings, but more about structural stuff. And then there was compliance. You know, is this thing fit for purpose? The dentist surgery brought it. You remember right back in day one, people were having services done, still had off fuse wire, CDs, no earthly, nothing. Like insane that was happening. And so it was to try and get council administration an actual modularised, componentised document to be used forever. So we didn't need it to come in and we could use the local electric for 5 years or 3 years or 2 years or whatever it was needed to happen because it didn't exist. So it was about trying to bring those two things together. This could still do that depending on what the breakup is, like services, for instance. I think one of the most serious and issues of repercussions, I think, in that services segment. So what's the breakdown of that? You know, what is the electrical of that building and the board of that? Does it have RPDs, earth linkages, or is there a program that needs to happen?
Yeah.
And when they, like you said, started to use locals to do some of this work, but they couldn't engage them.
They used them for some of it, but then
The delays.
delays have been like it. So, well, one of the ones I used got injured.
Yeah.
And couldn't do what he needed to do, and then he got busy, obviously, behind the stuff. So it's just kept getting pushed back and pushed back, and so
It's your contract.
yeah.
I think the other bit that I know for myself, which is that elected member bodies, we're meant to be here as helicopter view strategic people. There's been a lot of discussion about up to weeds, and we're forced to do that because of the way things were coming in. And, that we didn't have this documentation.
Yeah, well, I've never seen anything like a similar area.
So I'm just saying, like, and the fact that it didn't exist, it should have existed before you.
Yeah.
But it hasn't. And the thing is, the administration, led by Jason now, has to take full responsibility and accountability of these things, because in the future, elected member bodies should be just making strategic decisions at budget time. Are you going to fund this work? We've already done the work to say it's not, it's a low-use building, it's not worth putting this in, we're only going to maintain it to this level until it kind of isn't used at all. They're all decisions that should just come as part of policy.
Until we go over there and you get a bunch of muppets in there and take everything and just carry on to the next.
Yeah,
Then we repeat it.
and that's exactly the point I'm making. It has to be understood and used by the administration, and probably should therefore be a gender of government. Because there was a lot that we were told, oh, there's already been a series. It was investigated, it wasn't very in depth. Okay, but was it something or nothing? Because that's the accusation. So I guess that's the point I'm making, is the administration has to take it through to the next chamber. It's a lived thing.
To me, at the start, like we use it, and then when we go to budget stuff, we go further in depth, because as I've said to you just before, it's all estimations. It's all, they've only done what they can see. They haven't pulled a piece of tin of the railway station building, for example, to have a look at the beams, because to get up there, they would have had to have specialised equipment to do that sort of stuff. So,
and the funny part is, though, you get the Sparky or the plumber to come and do something in the aircon, sheet of lines off and drain. So it's like they've got insurance and responsibilities and protections as well. So some of it is, I think we call cucumber as council, as opposed to just getting the local contractor to do our job. And they'll have that sheet of iron off or it's through the roof or whatever it is in Jack Flash.
And that's what.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we won't do this again. No. So in 5 years' time, we'll get revamp. Yeah, good. We won't be having this. We've got a asset register now that's been componentised out with the age of the companies. So Charlotte should come in 3 years and go, hey, the air conditioner needs to be done on the hall.
Yeah.
And then Charlotte goes, actually, no.
I have a start here.
Sparky's had a look at it. We've actually got another 4 years to push it out, right? And then we update the useful life. So it actually generates the list that starts.
It gives you somewhere to start.
Yeah, it gives you somewhere to start. And then Charlotte goes by.
Yeah, common sense.
Does it? Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Rare sense.
Well, that refurbished before, not that long ago.
Would you mind? 37.
Still big major.
There's 25.
Issue there, like with getting tiles and some stuff, but we've done stuff to it, but it's not been refurbished like that.
But what did you guys spend?
And
So, was there anything what
what else was on there? Childcare.
You got some pen room?
Yeah, there's 36 or 37.
Have better luck actually being able to get rid of it. Danny.
Which units are there?
Yeah.
To talk to DDO compliant.
We haven't described.
Hensley Street.
Installations, so potentially it doesn't.
And that's because it's time scale. That's interesting.
Again, it's legislation.
What's this? It's like you needed after getting this information.
Thanks.
Sorry, what? Yeah. Probably further down.
Hang on.
Even though it's Charles County document, can you email it out?
I thought it was on just like
It's step in it, but at least it's done.
the post is, I know that when the ambulance goes there to try and get the trolley into one of those buildings, there's a post in place. So you can't get the,
Which building was it?
so it's actually technically, because I can't get the thing into. Yeah, I can't get the trolley into it, so.
So repaint, moldings, fascias. Roof shingling.
So we're not working for a full-time painter and maintenance man?
Yeah, if you go through and check that.
Yeah, you can make things look like they'll last another 30, 40 years with the Japanese ones and stuff.
Yeah, so it's a clearer picture, but it's not the whole picture. Basically, is what I wanted to get to, and most of the identified expenditure relates to long-term renewal rather than routine maintenance. The defects represent a logical starting point for prioritisation, which is that sheet there, and it represents an updated, more complete position than earlier that we provided you earlier, basically. It's still not the final picture, but it's a better picture than we did that.
Certainly is, yeah. All right, any more questions? Statements, good. Thank you. Thanks for coming.
Well, on that discussion, we're not wasting the time. As David just said, I mean, there's a key part of the thing is, and I'm thinking about by a number of contractors, having to try and get it done, timeframes, cost, curving, you know, it's all over. So I guess it'll be interesting to know what is the source strategy for to try and deal with that, because
I'd love it. This person just load up with like 2 weeks worth of work and
But that's been, we do, not using those contractors, you know, so it's not about budget.
But not paying.
Yeah,
Yeah, you could probably get 2 full-time guys for what we're paying.
yeah, potentially.
people.
Still need people to obviously, but the low hanging fruit, but the defect work would be internal, would be great.
And we, you know, there's certainly the emails see from groups, is there are groups who are keen, if not eager, to help both with physical and with funding, maintaining particularly the historic things, CWA or so on. But you need a legitimate place to start. And I guess we need, as we've done just recently, we need to remove the hurdles to the road. To help.
They are really.
That didn't
It's going to be a really interesting thing because obviously, you know, there was a last term, there was a save the toilets and an against saving the toilets petitions. So there were for and against. They'll get the same again, but we saw the first report, we need to spend 110 grand or so straight away. So this time it's a bit different. But then there's from the main street discussion with the officers, there was a segment of the community who thought, no, it's fine, I'll make it up to there, and when they're not, they're dropping it back on PWA, just doing what they need to do. And originally in the project, there was 100 grand to build a set of toilets in the bottom. So set up your way and the issues out the back there. It would be really interesting to say, well, okay, what's the proposition as an alternative suggestion, not that deal. To say, well, if you did put a toilet down the back of the seat of and remove the kitchen, doesn't set everyone have to have a kitchen. I know that to do something.
Just don't fight with a community that doesn't do anything, and we go to a community that actually wants to do something, and go to another community either down your way, or up in a route that actually wants to do shit instead of just watching shit just rust away into nothing. And that's my view of the way Lameroo is at the moment.
I think the response.
Whether they like it or not, that's how it was from the outside.
Don't think they did. Yeah.
Still that.
Anyway, I just thought it's something we need to look outside the window with some of these things, so we're not just you think about it that's been spent on beautification, certainly in this building in Pinaroo, in Lameroo, putting stuff into the change rooms and that, and really what this is highlighting is there's trunk repairs and maintenance. Said the 2 decades, or that we should have been doing that first.
So from my perspective, I don't really know what it was because I'm the qualified builder and I didn't really have budgets to go and investigate.
But since we've spent quite some hundreds of thousands of dollars, probably $500,000 in excess of that.
Yep.
To do nice things, and we now realise there's something that needs to be done. So we can just focus now to make sure the priority is first on what's necessary, not what improves it.
Yeah.
And you know, whether the one is getting warm or unless it's triple, it's too bad. It's terrible.
Just fix the leaky tap, save the floor.
Yeah, well, and then I guess the roof, the example, you know, we want tax put on the roof. I understand contractors do what contractors do, but that's when you don't have your own person, that's what happens. They spend $6 grand, I think. When
Cheapest left.
well, I can because it's leaking, you know, put some patches on there and fix it.
We have split it through, been included in the best maintenance.
Yeah.
What we can do. So it is a ongoing
Discussion. Just good on planning as well.
yeah.
Can you bring that into because those costs are only going up and we can actually have more control of that. It's done now, it's done.
Another issue.
Do you have a qualified builder to be able to just talking?
Depends on what it is. So if it's so it will depend.
You can get away with it.
Can't have something, but you know,
Someone's from Van
yeah,
here.
you can't redo the fuse box or some
Wiring stuff like that.
Yes, thank you.
Like, someone can patch like or patch up a piece of roof or replace the tap, do replace the door, that sort of stuff.
There's also a lot of work that they can do that they're not qualified for under the direction of the local builder who'll come off and charge you, come over and charge you
Yeah.
$200 to certify it at the end. You've done 10 grand worth of labour work and building work to get it done.
Which we could use local builders.
So is, but on those ones too, like I said, that people want to help, is there, if there is a job, someone needs paying about, do you go to the laws?
I think it's a bigger picture, Chris. It's about saying that's and we're going to find out in this budget. This $2 million there is real of how much we're short, and it's just made up. So whatever that number is, we know we can't. 40% increase.
Some,
But that might be to say, we can help by doing these works. So we've got this list of stuff, and in yesteryear, this playground, somebody got together and done it. 14. If there was something to be done in the swimming pool, that come in and that does. And so we might, as a community, maybe part of the solution is to say, look, there's a whole bunch of works that is the community through the groups prepared to take up some of this stuff.
Yeah, but the red tape and all the legalities behind it.
Well, that's-
prevent it.
But it increased. But definitely not. Yes,
But there's a way through that. It's the old thing. Sometimes you have to give us permission like that. Just think, state government do something.
like to get there. Like could disappear if you can want to.
Well, it's going to come up eventually through. You've seen stories of places that start all over. At some point, go to farm to say, let's get some equipment out of here, sparse disconnect. Pull them out, pick it out, clean skin it, happy days.
One of them is disconnected.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't figure out get something there to replace.
There's more.
There you go, good show.
There's stories from inside like councils are just giving back a lot of that community infrastructure. Prill is getting given to the Prill community. So do it as like the Parity Hall, which is well run and maintained by the community. The sports ground is the communities, not the councils. Well, that's what I was saying. The Prill and sport. That's what we provide. Stuff in the middle was to say, hey, the best last life is for you guys to come there, and there's other councils doing the same. For the same reasons that we, through the nature of local government, we get in the way because we're told to get in the way, our systems put us in the way, the Act puts us in the way. Whereas if you give that thing for nothing to the Primaroo community, get rid of all the time around it, so here it is. They don't have any of that. They've just got to have normal, liability insurance, which is cheap. And I'm thinking,
And significant access to grants and funding.
absolutely.
There needs to be a clause.
Yeah, that's right. Yes.
Yeah. Sure. If they give back. Then we can't do it.
We shouldn't.
But that's, so that can be moving forward scenario, some of these buildings and assets, because, it's a viable alternative. So you think there'll be certain people, something absolutely has.
That total group. How about the skills?
Well, that'd be volunteer.
Yeah. Okay. Great.